Sure, always.
When a teacher teaches a student doesn't yet know, the teacher needs to take the teachings and condense it, contract it, conceal the power of the teachings in order that the student would be able to entertain, to grasp, to wrap their head around this new idea, this new teachings. For the way it is in the teacher's mind, it's far too great, far too powerful to be given over in that manner. This is a metaphor that's used to understand how God, shall we say the ultimate teacher, or the ultimate influencer, well, that's what a teacher is an influencer, does in the act of creation. Welcome to Tanya Today. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zichron Kedoshim, Montreal, Canada, where it's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. We are in the final 3 chapters of Tanya. The Alter Rebbe is bringing everything together in a full manner of appreciation and understanding of the idea of the presence of God. What does that mean? That God is present in a specific place, like in the times of the Holy Temple, the Holy of Holies, by the Ark of the Covenant. That's where the Shekhinah, the divine presence is. Is not God found everywhere? What does that mean? As the verse says, do I not fill the world with my glory? So to understand this, we need to understand ourselves first. After all, we're created in the divine image. So when we understand how the soul interplays with the body, we will understand how God interplays with creation. And as we have explained, the soul interplays with the body in 3 dimensions. There's the essence of the soul that is found everywhere equally. There's no distinction between the brain, the heart, and a fingernail, thumbnail. The essence of the soul is found equally everywhere. There's no higher, there's no lower. The first place where there's the revelation, not essence, essence is beyond revelation. Therefore, there's no higher, lower. But the first place where there's a complete undiffused revelation of the soul is in the brain. And hence, the brain has awareness. Hence, the brain controls the rest of the bodies and gives vitality to the rest of the body. That's the undiffused revelation of the core of the soul. Not the essence, but the revelation. And the third element of the soul where it's found, well, it's found in my mouth right now in speaking. It's found in my eye in seeing. It's found in my arm to extend and my thumbnail. There's a distinction. There's a distinction. But it's only a ray of light of the soul, the ray of the soul, that is uniquely found in the eye, different than it is in the mouth. Therefore, the eye sees and the mouth speaks. And the thumbnail acts like a thumbnail. That is the metaphor that we learned yesterday. And we started to unravel the metaphor that with God, the essence of God, the or Ein Sof, that's beyond any form of revelation, there is no distinction between higher and lower. There's no such thing as a higher form of creation and a lower form of creation. It's all equal before the essence of God. That's core essence of God. Today we take the discussion, the analogy of the way the soul interplays in the body and the way God interplays with creation in the other extreme. Not the way the first revelation of the soul is in the brain, but the way the soul reflects itself in the eye that sees, in the ear that hears, in the arm that acts like an arm, and the distinction that there is. So likewise, in the difference there in this level in God, the way he is found in creation, there is a difference between higher and lower worlds. The flow of vitality, all right, the flow of vitality of the Ein Sof that illuminates, that comes out of concealment, out of hiddenness, because the essence of God is hidden, even from that which is hidden, right? In equal manner. So we speak about it, that the light comes out, and there's a greater light in the higher forms of creation. And that's actually why they're a higher form of creation, is because the light is not as contracted, is not as reduced. Just as the fact that the eye could see, but my thumbnail can't see. Why is that? Because the light of the soul is more powerful in the eye than it is in the thumbnail. Likewise, God's light of vitality in the higher worlds, the flow of that vitality is greater in the higher worlds, and therefore defining it as a higher world. Now, it's not the eye that defines the soul light. It's the soul that diffuses a element of a light of the soul that is less contracted, and therefore gives the power of a physical iris, a physical eyeball, and everything that's, that's physically there, the power of sight. The light of the soul is in my thumbnail likewise, but it's a much more reduced form of the soul, that therefore what the end result is, it's a thumbnail. So it's not the other way around. We think of it, the thumbnail's a thumbnail, and the eye's an eye, and, the soul No. It's based on the soul, that therefore it's the vessel that can contain it. By the way, one of the ways we know that, just parenthetically, we know that it's coming from the soul, because there's something dysphoria. What's dysphoria? That you can have a mixing up of senses, that the eye sees, the eye hears, and the ear sees. How can that be? Because it's not coming from the physicality of the ear and the physicality of the eye. It's coming from the soul. So there could be some kind of mix up there. But that's a disease. Gender related too, it's a disease. It's something from, and that comes from the mind, actually, from the brain, because that's the first undiffused soul that is revealed. But that's all parenthetical. Yeah. Okay. But just an interesting side note, right? Interesting. Amen. So it is this light of God that animates. In the higher worlds, it means it receives a greater light. The lower means that there is like a garment that's like garments. Why do we wear garments? To conceal. On one level, it's to conceal, right? Before the sin of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, they didn't wear anything because they needed to conceal. That it was not necessary to conceal the light of God because everything was godly. But after sinning, right? After sinning, there's divisions now. There's levels. There's a hierarchy. So the body needs to be covered because of that reality. I'm giving that as a metaphor to understand that the lower something is, right? It means just there's more garments concealing the light that's there. So again, parenthetically, because the elder was not saying this here, is in Jewish law it says, like, if you're going to pray to God, you're going to do an act that's a higher form. Well, you need to be honorable. So in covering yourself, you're bringing more honor to the higher form, right? Because the lower element of the person needs to be covered because you're now dealing with a higher element. So you cover yourself. There's another element of garment, by the way. I'm talking about the concealment of the garment, but also a garment brings honor to the person when it's proper and nice garments. That's another element. For the metaphor over here, we're talking about the concealment rather than the honor that it brings. But there is those two components. So when they sinned in the tree of knowledge of good and evil, right, the light of God there wasn't really much distinction except for the tree and the serpent. Everything else was holy and godly, animated, and therefore revealed godliness. Revealed godliness. Nothing's hidden. They sin, all of a sudden now there's a hierarchy, there's a division. There's a division, there's a distinction, right? That's why when we go to pray, we put on a gartel, when you're married at least, right? Because you make a division between the higher and the lower self. Because prayer is dealing with the higher self, the heart, mind. So you're making that division. God in the act of creation makes division. Higher worlds means the light is greater. And that's what makes it higher. So angels above, souls that are in Gan Eden, if they're the higher level of Gan Eden, the world of Bria, the light there is not so reduced. There isn't a garment of concealment of the light of God, and therefore it animates it on a much more sublime level. As a result of that, in the higher world, to be a greater propensity to recognize your source and where you come from. Here, this lower world, different story, right? In other words, the garments are so many, right? So concealing, you might not even, and we don't naturally recognize the source of the light. Think about it. The source of light in our home from the sun, when you don't have a curtain up on your window, then it's pretty obvious the source. But if you put a light curtain, so it might not be as obvious if you didn't have a curtain, right? Not so as obvious. But imagine you put 3 curtains, or you put 30 curtains, and you put dark curtains. Can you imagine the light that will come through? What will that light produce? Or it'll be minimal light, and of course, a minimal recognition of the source of that light. Now, only because we know that the light that came through those curtains is from the sun. We know that, right? But if you didn't know that, right? I'm using this as a metaphor, of course, right? Okay, a brief class. In this class, we just brought out the third element of this way the soul is in the body. The third element is the way it's diffused, the soul, that the eye should see and the arm should act like an arm and a thumbnail like a thumbnail. That's based on the reduction of the light of the soul. As it reduces, it creates a lesser, creation. Lesser doesn't mean less valuable, right? That's not what it means, less valuable. Lesser cognition, that's what it means. Lesser recognition of the source of what animates, right? That's today's class. In more than a nutshell. Any questions, any comments? Teddy has question. Okay, where is Okay, Teddy, you're bringing a light in southern Spain. Meaning he's learning Tanya in southern Spain, right? That means you're bringing light, enlightenment, life. Why is it a disease, that which happened at Har Sinai? Oh, at Har Sinai was a, thank you, Teddy. You're right. At Har Sinai, there was dysphoria, right? Because it says they saw what they usually hear and heard what they usually see. So you're right. There, thank you, Teddy. It wasn't dysphoria. That is true. Not, not then. Today, if there was, then that would be. That was something for right. That I mean, we would call it a sickness, shall we say? So in a sense, it was. I would. I don't know. Sick. At Mount Sinai wasn't a sickness. It was just such a powerful revelation of God, right? Such a powerful revelation of God that they couldn't be a receptacle for it, and therefore their souls departed from them. But just to bring that idea further, the term in the Talmud for a blind person is saginar, which means too much light. So on one level, it means it's a euphemism to say the opposite of what is, right? Chassidus explains it's actually not the opposite. It is that. It's too much light that the vessel can't contain it, and therefore it breaks the vessel. Right? If you take a pitcher and you pour into here, so it'll be okay. But if you took a barrel and started to pour into here water, well, if this was, ceramic and it was on the edge over here, it would fall and it would break. The vessel would break. Why? Too much. Can't contain it. So a blind person means too much light from the soul that it can't contain it. So dysphoria means too much of something that is not normally meant for that limb or that organ, that it can't contain it, and therefore it acts in a different manner than it would normally act. So at Mount Sinai, that's what happened, because the light of God was too great, right? Blind person, that's what happens, but in the end, it's not the way it is ultimately meant to happen in a normative way, right? Mount Sinai was beyond, and and likewise a blind person. And so Rebbe says that someone who's blind, for example, or someone who has some lack in some way, as when the IDF soldiers who were had something that crippled them in wars, they came to the Rebbe in 1976, The Rebbe said that you should not be called the crippled of Israel. You should be called the Mitziyan Israel, the exceptional ones. Why exceptional? Not exceptional as a euphemism. The Rebbe is not as a euphemism, as you are exceptional. Because if for some reason God took away the capacity in one area, and because you excel and you are extraordinary in another area. That's what it means. So anyways, that's all added. But thank you, Teddy, for that.
But for someone whose sight is has been restored, or who has had surgery and they're now able to see the first time, from a Hasidic perspective, is there a lessening of the lights that they can now see?
It'll be a lesson because it's a light that can be contained by the vessel. Ultimately, the concept of too much light that broke the vessels is something that happened in the act of creation. That's the world of tohu, the world of confusion, the world, a volatile world, right? And from there developed the world of tikkun, the world of fixing, that there should be broad vessels, big vessels, and a light that could be contained in it. That's ultimately. So ultimately what we want is the lights of tohu that are unbelievable, awesome lights, but they should be contained within the vessels of tikkun, right? Ultimately. All right. Amazing. Folks, so bring it every day. Wow. I'm glad I come here every day. Oh, welcome back. All right. We're going to do Rambam. Folks, have an amazing day. We're finishing off our campaign today for Chabad Lifeline Crisis Addiction Center, where we help families and addicts and children that have to deal with addiction in their family. And if you gave already, I say thank you on their behalf. And if you didn't get a chance yet, you can go to charity.com/lifeline. And if your heart brings you to give. And we say thank you very much. God bless you.